Creating characters in novels is hard, but creating great characters is even harder. In order to do so, a writer must understand their characters and how they act and feel. To achieve this, however, is extremely challenging. Miss Dalloway, written by Virginia Woolf, is one of the most unique novels of our time. The novel follows Clarissa. She makes preparations for her party, a party that she is the host of. The story travels backwards and forwards in time, but also goes into and out of the minds of characters in order to create an image of her life and of the interwar social structure. Woolf shapes her masterpiece to fit within her idea of aesthetics and writing, and is successful in destroying what a novel is by eliminating the steps and bricks of conventional plot and the effort of breaking with strict representationalism. Miss Dalloway is where she discovered a new way to create characters, this being the psychological exploration of the characters themselves. She began writing Miss Dalloway in June 1922 and finished it in October 1924. In it, Woolf makes use of the stream of consciousness technique, interior monologues, to present her world in the novel. She shifts the focus from external reality to inner reality of the characters, which are revealed through the flow of their consciousness. Interior monologues are a key component of stream of consciousness pieces. It uses the words of characters to show the readers the inner life of the character, without the need for commentary or explanation from the writer. It shows the consciousness of the characters, but also the inner contents of the characters' minds. Thus, the main purpose of interior monologues are to showcase the psychological identity of the characters that you create. The two main types of interior monologues are direct and indirect interior monologues. Direct interior monologues are shown without interference from the writer. It is essentially as if the character isn't speaking to the writers of our fictional characters it shares scenes with, and showcases this without the use of he thoughts and he says. Indirect interior monologues is the opposite, and makes sure the reader is aware of the presence of the author, and does not include description and commentary. Woolf uses indirect interior monologues in Mrs. Dalloway expertly, even though the author is clearly in the piece. With her she thoughts and he says, the author creates the illusion that we are actually inside the consciousness of the main characters. In order to showcase the thoughts and minds of the character in Miss Dalloway, the author uses interior monologues to skillfully show the mind of her characters, to capture what they are thinking and to dramatize their thoughts. The techniques she uses is that once she lets the readers see into the character's mind using the already established direct interior monologue technique, to use he said and she thought, she then allows the consciousness of the characters to run wild and expertly engorges or shrinks this free rein to suit the purpose of the book. An example of this can be seen here, where she writes, "Did it matter then?" she asked herself, walking towards Bond Street. Did it matter that she must inevitably cease completely? All this must go on without her. Did she resent it? Or did it not become consoling to believe that death ended absolutely? After allowing the reader to enter the mind of the character by using the framing "she asked herself," Woolf allows the character to ponder her potential death, making her appear to be philosophical about it. This example still uses direct interior monologue techniques by using third-person pronouns and past tense within it, such as that she asked herself. Yet the use of "she must inevitably cease completely," instead of using death, fits in with the philosophical tone of what Woolf was going for, by personalizing death, but yet still sticks to the free rein of speech that comes with indirect interior monologues. This can also be seen in the second example, which reads, "I know all that," Peter thought. "I know what I'm up to," he thought, running his fingers along the blade of his knife. Clarissa and Dalloway and all the rest of them. But I'll show them. I'll show Clarissa. and then to his utter surprise, suddenly thrown by those uncontrollable tears, wept. This example uses both direct and indirect monologue techniques by mixing indirect and direct discourse, by showing that the character's thoughts are rendered strictly, I know all that, I know what I'm up to against, but I'll show Clarissa. The direct aspect of the piece shows how in control of his thoughts Peter believes himself to be, but immediately breaks out in tears, which is achieved by the narrator, who implies the he thought twice, one after the other, which can be used as an intermediary between the thoughts of the reader and the character. Woolf, like many modern writers, whose primary concern was to showcase the minds and internal conflict within the minds of her characters, has clearly moved the focus of the narrative to the inner working of the main characters. In Mrs. Dalloway, the continued use of he said and he thoughts seems to imply that the author's main mode is maintained throughout and controls the thoughts and consciousness of the characters. Constantly using interior monologues by the narrator is done so that they place themselves into the minds of the character and adopts their mindset. Likewise, the subjective tone of the main characters join with much more objective tone of the narrator, allowing the narrator to take on a character's speech, thus enhancing the reader's perspective. Interior monologues allow the point of view to move freely around, and Woolf's use of multi-person narrative allows us to see many different perspectives of many different characters, but also the narrator's perspective as well, which can be seen in the following example, which reads, "They just came up, unfortunately, to see doctors. Other people came to see pictures, go to the opera, take their daughters out. The Whitebreads came to see doctors. Time without number, Clarissa had visited Evelyn Whitebread, a nursing home. Was Evelyn ill again? Evelyn was a great deal out of sorts," said he. Here, in just 5 sentences, the point of view switches multiple times. The first sentence is seen from Hugh's perspective, as he is bringing Evelyn, his wife, to the hospital. Yet sentences 2 and 3 switch from his point of view to the narrator's, which makes clear that Evelyn is ill most of the time, but also that Miss Dalloway is a loving, thoughtful, and caring person who comes to see the ill, which then prepares us for her point of view in the 4th sentence, then comes back to Hugh's point of view in the 5th. In sentence 3, it is shown that the narrator has subtly revealed she likes Miss Dalloway. Thus, we are introduced to the ideology of the character and of the narrator. The objective point of view showcased through past perspective in the 3rd sentence is then added with the subjective views of characters. In the example, the 2 priorities of indirect and discourse are clearly evident, but interior monologues can also contain features of direct discourse, such as imperatives and exclamatory points, which can be seen in the next example. This places the interior monologues from the point of view of the characters, and thus it moves the narrator further away from the opinion, which helps prepare the grounds for a character to instantaneously change. Another example of this can be seen here, which reads, "Turning her large gooseberry-coloured eyes upon Clarissa, observing her small pink face, the delicate body, her air of freshness and fashion, Miss Kelman felt, fool, simpleton, you know neither sorrow nor pleasure, who have trifled your life away." This shows us how the narrator mixes both direct and indirect interior monologue techniques to make the reader feel sorry for Clarissa, but also resent Miss Kelman. The direct interior monologue presents present tense position throughout the presentation from the thought of view of Kelman, which shows the readers that the narrator is not showing an affiliation, which can be seen when she writes gooseberry-covered eyes, which showcases her negatively. But in mentioning Clarissa's small pink face, her delicate body, her air of freshness and fashion, Woolf once again shows us her affiliation towards Miss Dalloway. In doing so, Woolf ignores the identity that he/she is expected, as we are given not one character whose mind we read, but many different people's consciousnesses, which shift from one to another, then back again. So, from this analysis, what exactly should writers such as yourself take from Rolf's use of stream of consciousness? The first thing I would suggest you add to your work is using direct interior monologue techniques, such as he thoughts and she thoughts, to establish who's talking, and then use indirect interior monologues to allow your character's consciousness to run rampant. This will allow you as a writer to further explore your character's psyche and characteristics just by talking with themselves, which is a useful thing to use in your work. However, be sure to use third-person pronouns and past tense when doing this. The use of direct and indirect discourse is also useful, as switching between the two can make it easier for the reader to identify thought from speech, but can also be used to showcase a character's psyche, such as things direct speech to make someone appear to be in control, then using indirect speech to show them breaking down. Direct discourse was also used for exclamatory points and imperatives, and I would suggest you to use them. I would also suggest using your voice as the author to place yourself into the characters' minds and use the subjective tone of the characters plus your own objective voice. This will enhance the reader's perspective on the characters and who they are. I will also suggest using multi-person narration, and this allows you to see many different characters' perspectives. I would also suggest using these direct and indirect interior monologue techniques to position who you are, who you want the audience to root for, and who you want them to resent. This will allow you to further show readers who your characters are as people, and to further allow your readers to understand the characters they are reading about, and why they do and say the things they do. I will now show you an extract from my piece I have written, using the tips I have suggested. In this passage, I have used direct interior monologue techniques, shown in the red, to establish who's talking, and then I have used indirect interior monologues, highlighted in green, to allow my character's thoughts to have free reign. An example of this would be here. How is it, he asked himself, was it possible that all living creatures on planet Earth are the only example of life in the universe? I have also used direct discourse, highlighted in pink, and indirect discourse, in bold and italics, as this allows those who read my piece to distinguish from the thoughts of the characters, the narrator's voice, and the speech of the characters, making it easy to follow the train of thoughts of the characters and the narrator. An example of this can be seen here. How is it, he asked himself, was it possible that all living creatures on planet Earth are the only examples of life in the universe? It was a fair question to ask, all those stars and yet no evidence of other life, seemed pretty far-fetched to him. I've also highlighted in purple where the narrator has been used as an objective voice, and examples of multi-person narratives are underlined. An example of this would be here. She would have been proud of you, Cass, he said to himself in a sober state. So proud of the woman you've become. Top athlete, valedictorian, you didn't have a weakness. She was so strong, and he loved her for it. He's a good boyfriend, Cassandra thought to herself. He's beyond good. He's great, she thought, but Mom wouldn't have been proud of her for dating him. Sure, he wasn't a great guy. Hell of a body to boot. Finally, sentences where I have wanted the audience to root for a character and who I want to resent are highlighted in the orange. Examples include, whatever beings lived out in the cosmos, none of them would be as perfect as Cassandra, and she did seem sadder than usual, which makes us understand that Jason is a good person. Also, she was so strong and he loved her for it. An example of using this technique to make Cassandra look bad would be here, but he was a now boyfriend. He sure wasn't her long-term one. He's got no ambition, and that's all I've got. Will be able to change for me, considering Jason wouldn't even change for his dying mother. That seemed unlikely. Still, she thought, breaking up with him was going to be hard, but Declan was just better for her. Sure, the sex probably wouldn't be as great. Declan was studying to become a doctor. What could be better than that? She'd be an idiot not to hitch her trailer to that ride. That's what her mum would have told her. Here we can clearly see how I've used that to portray her in a negative light. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you've learned something about stream of consciousness and how to apply it to your own work.